So welcome back to another lecture on OOP. In the previous lecture, I gave a very basic and brief introduction about OOP. So in this lecture, we will be specifically talking about the class and see how we can implement the class in Python. So in the previous lecture, I defined the class as a template. So basically it is a core template for creating objects. For example, we have a class, we have the class of car, like we have the template of car, and we can have the physical representations of this class. Bugatti and Lamborghini are the objects of this class, and we can also call them like Bugatti is an instance 1 and Lamborghini is an instance 2. So obviously car have some following properties or attributes. Car can have color, manufacturer, model, year, and similarly we can fill the tank of car, we can make the car drive, we can start the engine and we can stop the engine, and there are many other methods we can implement. So this is the class, this is the implementation of class in Python. We can simply make the class by using the keyword class, and here we have the initializer method with different attributes. I'll be explaining the self and initializer method in a few seconds. For now, just take an overview that how a class looks like in Python. And here we have two methods for filling tank and make the car drive. And here obviously we are making an object of the class car, and this time we have an OD with model A4 and 2016. So these values are representing these attributes: make, model, year. And here we are basically accessing the attribute of the class, which is self.fillLevel, and modifying it from 0 to 5. So let's make a class from scratch about WhatsApp on our ID. So let's make a class from scratch about WhatsApp. It seems pretty interesting. So write class and write the class name WhatsApp, and let's make an initializer or constructor def double underscore init double underscore, and let's write the self and write some attributes like what WhatsApp consists of. The number is the most important factor, that on what number we have the WhatsApp. So obviously the number and what version of WhatsApp we have. So we can have different attributes, but let's just now consider these attributes for this class. And then what OS, like it is an iOS or Android WhatsApp. So, and let's initialize these attributes self by using the self dot number is equal to number, and self dot version self dot OS is OS. So basically what the self is the reference to the current instance of the class and is used to access the variables that belongs to class. So this is not a keyword, this is a convention. We can also use another word instead of self, but to increase the readability, it is highly recommended that we must use the self word. So the purpose of self will also be clear as we move forward. This initializer method basically used to initialize these attributes or variables, and there is no other purpose of this initializer method, or we call this method as a constructor. So self.number will be representing this number, and self.version will be representing this version. So WhatsApp have different functionalities, like we can make the groups, we can make call, we can change our number to another number, we can send the messages. So let's just implement those methods. First, make a method about change number, and we have to write the self in each method as a first parameter. Even we have no parameter, then we also need to write the self. So obviously we have to write the new number which we want to replace with the old number. Let's just call it new number, and now modify our self.number to new number. Let's print number has changed successfully. Okay, so we had the self dot number. Okay, so whenever this method is called, this number will change to this new number. So let's make another method. Let's say this time we have to upload our status. Self and upload can be any file, like it can be text, it can be any media, either video or audio, it doesn't matter. We just need to upload something on status, we need to update our status. So we can also make a variable here, self dot status, which is empty by default, and we can update it like self dot status is upload, and we can print status has been updated successfully. And we can also make another method like def make call, and obviously we have to write the number who we have to call. So we just need to print, obviously we are not adding the real life implementation here, but we are making implementing some methods here like for our own class. So obviously there would be implementation like by ourselves. So print calling, and so we can also make the groups, and for the better implementation we can have the list of groups, because one user can have the multiple groups. So let's just make a list for groups, an empty list, because by default whenever we newly join WhatsApp we don't have groups. So then we start making our groups, and each time we make our group, that group will be added into this list. Make groups, self group name, so self dot groups dot append group name. New group created. And yes, we can also make the method send message. It is pretty similar to make call, like to who we have to send the message, and we can simply write receiver or call number. So print, and we also need to write the message which we have to send. Message sent to receiver. So we can also make a method to display the whole info, like this user have how many groups, and what groups the user has, and what number user has WhatsApp on, and there are some other options we can print. So let's just make a method for show info, and we don't need to add some parameter because we just need to print all the information we have. So just print, like first of all I would like to print the number, so we need to use the self dot number, otherwise it would give us error because number is not defined here. But we can use the self dot number, this parameter, by using the self. Print version, and obviously the self dot version, and now we can have the groups against this number. So we can simply print the whole list self dot groups, right? So this method will simply print this information, and so let's just make the object of this class. So just name any WhatsApp1. Let's say WhatsApp1 is equal to the class name, and now we will give the values of these attributes. So whenever we make the object, this method is called each time, and we don't need to add self here. We just need to add this number, version, or OS. So let's add some random number. I don't know if it is 11 numbers or not, so let's just call it the number, and then version, we can also give it in the string, or we can just give it as a float. So this is version number, and the platform is Android, which is operating system. So as you can see that I didn't add the self here because Python automatically determines that this instance belongs to this class, and it automatically determines that the first attribute is already self, so we don't need to add the self here while calling the method. So now we have to see that how we can access the method using this object, the methods of this class. So we will use the name of this object, or we can see the instance WhatsApp1 dot, let's say I need to call the function change number, so I will simply use a dot and then function name, and then I have to give the attribute like what number I have to change. I again don't need to add the self here. So my new number is, let's say, this is my new number, and now I would like to call the function make a group, make groups, and I have to name the group, and let's say the family, and I want to make another group dot make groups friends, and now I want to send message to this number, and what message I want to send. So I want to send hello, how are you? So now I just want to print the whole details of this number, like WhatsApp1 dot simply show info, and I don't need to add the parameters because we can see that there are no parameters other than the self, and we just simply ignore the self while calling the functions, or we can say we're calling the methods. So now let's run this program. Okay, so first of all we just call the change number. So it simply went to the change number and it gave us the output that number has changed successfully, and then we created the new groups. We created 2 times. That first is the family and friends. We can also see here from the list that we have the 2 groups against this number, and then we send the message to this number like hello, how are you, and we have the number. And because after changing this number, our old number was replaced by this number, and we have the version 1.02. So this is how we can make the class and how we can make the objects and can access the methods of the class. So now let's see how we can access the attribute and modifier. So let's say we have the version here. Let's call it the version by ourselves 1.02. By default the version is 1.02, but this time let's cut it and paste here. So I am accessing that attribute and changing it to version 2. So WhatsApp 1 dot version is 2, and now I would like to print the info, and so again call this. So here we can see that the version is 1.02, but we access that variable and we then modified this to from 1.0 to 2. So here we can see the modified value of this version. So this is how we can access the attributes of the class, and then we can modify this. And let's make another instance, this time call WhatsApp 2, and now just simply make groups class group, and now WhatsApp 2 dot show info. So WhatsApp 1 is one object and WhatsApp 2 is another object. So let's just simply run this program again. Okay, so basically we got an error because WhatsApp 2 is not defined. So let's check what is the error. So WhatsApp 2, obviously because we didn't create the object, we have to again make the object like this. So WhatsApp 2 is WhatsApp, and we have to give the number again because this is another user with a different number. So let's give the number this, and version let's say 2.2, and this person has iOS, and let's run this program. Okay, so this information is basically of the first object, which is the WhatsApp 1, and now this detail is of the WhatsApp 2, which is our second object. So first of all, we called this method, we called the make groups method, and then our group was created, and then we printed all the information. So our number here, our version is here, and then our group is here. So this is how we can make the class, and how we can make the object, and how we can access the methods and then modify the methods and attributes. So in the next lecture we will see what are the modifiers and setters and getters, and what are the private variables. So see you in the next lecture.